You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot have both. What if the bravest thing you could do today was simply to show up? No armor. No masks. Just you, real, vulnerable, and ready to lead from the heart. This isn't just another book about leadership. This is a wake-up call. Because true leadership isn't about control, perfection, or a title on your business card. It's about courage, raw, messy human courage. It's the courage to step into difficult conversations. The courage to be vulnerable when everything in you screams, hide. The courage to rumble with fear, failure, and discomfort, and still lead with empathy, integrity, and heart. If you've ever thought, I'm not brave enough to lead, this book is here to tell you, you absolutely are. You don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing. Willing to lean in. Willing to be seen. Willing to lead with your whole heart. Because the future isn't being shaped by the loudest voice in the room. It's being shaped by those who dare to do the hard work, have the tough conversations, and show up with nothing but guts and grace. So, are you ready? Then take a deep breath and let's begin. The call to courage. Courage is contagious. Brené Brown. What does it mean to truly lead? Not from a place of power or performance, but from presence? From vulnerability? In Dare to Lead, Brené Brown strips leadership of its corporate buzzwords and armor, and asks a bigger question. Who are you when things get uncomfortable? How do you show up when it gets real? Because leadership isn't about being the smartest in the room. It's about being brave enough to say, I don't know. That hurt. We need to talk. Tell me more. That's courage. That's leadership. And Brené's research, spanning decades of vulnerability, shame, and human connection, shows something radical. Brave leaders are never silent about hard things. But most of us were raised to believe that vulnerability equals weakness. So we armor up. We avoid feedback. We hide behind titles. We say, I'm fine when we're falling apart. And here's the cost. We create work cultures of fear, disconnection, and burnout, where no one feels safe enough to speak the truth. So Brené calls us to something better. Not louder voices. Not tighter control. But braver hearts. She reminds us that you can't get to courage without walking through vulnerability. Period. And in leadership, vulnerability doesn't mean spilling your feelings all over the boardroom. It means being honest, being curious, being open to growth, discomfort, and tough conversations. It means daring to say, I need help. We failed. I was wrong. Let's try again. The call to courage is loud. It's the voice that whispers, this might be hard, but it's worth it. And when you answer that call, not with perfection but with presence, you become the kind of leader people trust. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're willing to ask the real questions. The Armory, what we use to protect ourselves. Armor is the greatest barrier to daring leadership. Brené Brown. Most of us aren't afraid of leadership. We're afraid of being seen. And so, instead of leading with our whole hearts, we suit up. Not in courage, but in armor. Brené Brown identifies the hidden emotional shields we carry into conversations, meetings, and relationships, designed to keep us safe, but only end up keeping us small. We're so busy hiding who we are that we forget who we are. Here's the truth. We all armor up. Maybe yours is perfectionism. Maybe it's sarcasm. Maybe it's always needing to be the expert in the room. Whatever form it takes, it sounds like this. If I control everything, I won't get hurt. If I seem strong, no one will see how anxious I feel. If I never ask for help, no one will know I'm struggling. This armor feels like protection. But it's not. It's a wall between us and the people we're trying to lead. And when we lead from armor, we shut down hard conversations. Avoid feedback. Play it safe instead of daring greatly. Value compliance over connection. We create a culture where people are afraid to speak up, make mistakes, or show who they really are. That is not brave leadership. That's fear dressed up as professionalism. The opposite of armored leadership is daring leadership. And Brené is crystal clear. Daring leadership is built on 4 skill sets. Rumbling with vulnerability. Living into our values. Braving trust. Learning to rise. But before we can lead others, we have to get curious about our own armor. Ask yourself, what triggers my fear at work? When do I feel the urge to shut down, lash out, or prove something? What part of me is trying to stay safe? And what is it costing me? Because underneath the armor is your actual strength. Not the performance. Not the title. Not the tough talk. Your strength is your willingness to show up. And the moment you take the armor off, people feel it. And they trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Rumbling with vulnerability, the real work of brave leaders. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. Brené Brown. Let's be honest, vulnerability sounds great in theory, but in the boardroom? In a high-stakes conversation? In front of people who might judge you? Can feel terrifying. But here's what Brené Brown teaches us. You cannot be a courageous leader without vulnerability. There is no daring leadership without it. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. When you rumble with vulnerability, you step into hard, messy, emotional conversations, without pretending you've got it all together. It means asking hard questions without guaranteed answers, giving feedback that might sting, owning your part in a conflict, staying open when everything in you wants to shut down. And no, it doesn't mean oversharing or emotionally dumping on your team. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's risk, emotional exposure, and uncertainty, and choosing to lean in anyway. A rumble, in Brené's world, is an honest, no BS conversation where we listen with the same passion we want to be heard. We stay curious, not defensive. We own our stories, even the uncomfortable ones. Rumbling with vulnerability means having the courage to lean into difficult conversations and experiences, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. It's the meeting where you say, "We didn't hit our goal, and I want us to understand why together." It's the performance review where you say, "This feedback might be tough to hear, but I respect you enough to tell the truth." It's the family dinner where you say, "That comment hurt, and I want to talk about it." Every leader wants trust. But trust doesn't come from charm or credentials. It comes from moments where you're real, raw, and brave enough to go there. And here's the secret. Every time you choose vulnerability over avoidance, every time you stay in the room when the conversation gets hard, you expand your capacity to lead from the heart. So, the next time you feel the urge to avoid the discomfort, pause, take a breath, and dare to rumble. Because that's where change happens. That's where connection happens. That's where leadership lives. Living into your values, making leadership personal and real. Courage is contagious. To scale daring leadership, we have to cultivate a culture where brave work, tough conversations, and whole hearts are the expectation. Brené Brown. Let's get something straight. Your values don't mean a thing if you don't live them. It's easy to hang a mission statement on a wall. To say you believe in integrity, collaboration, empathy. But when pressure hits, when conflict flares or goals aren't met, do your actions match your words? That's the test. Living into your values means getting clear on what you truly stand for. Having the courage to act in alignment with those values, especially when it's hard. Holding yourself and your team accountable to those standards. We can't live into values we can't name. Brené challenges us to identify just 2 core values. Not 10. Not 5. 2. The ones that truly define how you want to lead, love, and live. Maybe it's honesty, or compassion, or service. Whatever they are, they should be so core to your identity that you're willing to disappoint others to stay true to them. Because here's what happens when leaders actually live their values. Teams know what to expect from you. Trust grows. Decision-making becomes easier. Your leadership becomes deeply rooted, not performative. Living into your values is what separates performative leadership from transformational leadership. It's the moment you say, "We're not taking that shortcut because it's not how we do things here. I'm sorry. That wasn't aligned with the leader I want to be. This isn't easy, but it's the right thing, and that matters more." Values are just words on a wall unless we practice them, especially when it's hard. And remember, your team doesn't need a perfect leader. They need one who's anchored, clear, courageous enough to stand for something. So ask yourself, what are the 2 values I refuse to compromise? How do I live those values even when it's inconvenient? What message does my leadership send, even when I'm not speaking? Because when you live your values, you don't just inspire people, you invite them to do the same. And that's leadership that leaves a legacy. Braving trust, the anatomy of connection. Trust is earned in the smallest of moments. It is earned not through heroic deeds or even highly visible actions, but through paying attention, listening, and gestures of genuine care and connection. Brené Brown. Let's be real. Without trust there is no team, no collaboration, no innovation, no psychological safety. But how do you actually build trust? Not just talk about it in HR meetings, but make it real, felt, lived? Brené Brown gives us a roadmap called Braving, an acronym for the 7 elements that build or break trust in every interaction. Let's unpack it. Be boundaries. You respect mine and I respect yours. If you're unclear about what's okay and what's not, and don't ask or communicate, that's a trust killer. Good leaders set boundaries and honor them. Period. Or reliability. You do what you say you'll do. Consistently. This isn't about overpromising and sprinting once. It's about delivering sustainably over time. No empty commitments. No flakiness. Just steady follow-through. Trust is built in small moments, not grand gestures. The accountability. You own your mistakes, apologize, and make amends. You also allow others to do the same. No blame shifting. No finger pointing. Just radical responsibility. The vault. What you share with me stays with me. I don't gossip about you, and I don't share other people's stories either. If someone is always spilling tea to you, they're probably spilling yours to someone else. Confidentiality builds trust. Loose lips sink relationships. Integrity. Choosing courage over comfort. Choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. Being whole, not just likable. Integrity is doing what's right even when no one is watching, and especially when they are. Non-judgment. You can tell me your truth and I'll listen without shame or scorn. Likewise, I can ask for help without fearing that you'll use it against me. This one's huge for creating spaces where people feel safe to be real. Generosity. Assuming the most generous interpretation of others' intentions. Instead of jumping to "they're out to get me," try "they're probably overwhelmed right now." This doesn't mean being naive. It means choosing grace over blame when you don't have all the facts. Trust isn't fluffy. It's foundational. And here's what's wild. You can use Braving to assess any relationship, personal, professional, romantic. If something feels off, walk through these 7 elements and ask, where's the breakdown? Am I showing up in these ways too, or just expecting others to? Because leadership isn't about demanding trust. It's about being trustworthy. And that takes clarity, consistency, and courage. So the next time you're leading a team, a project, or even a hard conversation, ask yourself, am I braving trust, or breaking it? Because when you lead with Braving, you don't just create better teams. You create stronger, more human connections. Learning to rise, resilience, setbacks, and the heart of courage. If you're brave enough, often enough, you will fall. The key is learning how to get back up. Brené Brown. Here's the truth. You will fall. You will fail. If you're daring greatly, leading bravely, and living with your whole heart, setbacks are inevitable. But here's the game changer. What separates the people who stay down from those who rise stronger isn't the fall. It's the recovery process. Brené calls this learning to rise. It's the skill set of emotional resilience. It's the ability to pause, feel, reflect, and rewrite the story you're telling yourself, before shame, fear, or anger writes it for you. The reckoning. It starts with awareness. You get triggered. Your face flushes. Your chest tightens. Your inner critic roars. This is the moment to ask, what emotion am I feeling? Where is it showing up in my body? Get curious, not reactive. Don't numb it. Don't fix it. Just feel it and name it. We cannot selectively numb emotion. When we numb the dark, we also numb the light. The rumble. This is the hard part, owning your story. You ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Is it true? What assumptions am I making? For example, someone cancels a meeting with you. Your brain goes, they don't respect me. That's your story. But is it fact? This is where you get raw, honest, and brave. You dig into your emotions, triggers, and the deeper meaning you're assigning. Because here's the thing. Most leadership failures aren't about strategy, they're about unprocessed emotion. The revolution. This is the rewrite. You get to retell the story, this time from a place of truth, not fear. You choose growth over perfection. You take responsibility, set new boundaries, apologize if needed, and step forward, wiser, not wounded. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we'll ever do. Why does this matter for leaders? Because brave leaders don't pretend not to fall. They normalize struggle. They model resilience. They create a culture where rising strong is just as important as winning. Imagine this in your team. You celebrate vulnerability, not just performance. You debrief failures with honesty, not blame. You teach people how to rise, and they start taking bolder, braver action. That's courage culture. And it starts with you. So the next time you fall, and you will, remember, the power isn't in avoiding the fall. It's in learning to rise. Whole hearts, redefining leadership through vulnerability and values. Daring leaders work to make sure people can be themselves and feel a sense of belonging. Brené Brown. This is where everything we've explored comes together. Vulnerability, courage, trust, empathy, values, and resilience. Because at the end of the day, dare to lead isn't about being fearless. It's about leading with your whole heart. Wholehearted leadership. What it really means. Wholehearted leaders don't try to fix people. They don't lead through fear or perfectionism. They know that true belonging only happens when people feel safe to be themselves. Messy, brilliant, learning in progress selves. They create cultures where people are seen, not just used. Where tough conversations are welcomed, not avoided. Where vulnerability is not a weakness to be hidden, but a strength to be harnessed. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. They don't sugarcoat hard truths. They communicate clearly. They set boundaries with compassion. They lead with empathy, not ego. And most importantly, they go first. They model the very courage they ask from others. Your values equals your compass. Brené is unapologetic about this. If you don't know your core values, you can't lead effectively. Period. Values aren't cute slogans on a wall. They're the non-negotiables that guide every decision, conversation, and action, especially when it's hard. When leaders act out of alignment with their values, people lose trust. But when your actions reflect your deepest beliefs, you become magnetic, powerful, unshakable, leading with love. Yes, love. It's not a word most companies feel comfortable with, but Brené challenges us to change that. Because without love, for yourself, for others, for the mission, leadership becomes empty. Love isn't soft. It's fierce. It's choosing to care, to be seen, to see others, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Who we are is how we lead. So, if you're still wondering, am I brave enough to lead? Here's your answer. You already are. You don't need more credentials, more status, or some title. What you need is the willingness to do the inner work. To rumble with vulnerability. To build trust. To own your values. To lead with a whole, open, courageous heart. Because when you do, you don't just change how you lead. You change everything around you. The culture. The outcomes. The people. The future. Final words. This isn't a finish line, it's a beginning. You've got the tools. You've got the truths. Now it's time to dare greatly, speak bravely, love fully, and lead wholeheartedly. Let's build workplaces, relationships, and lives where courage is contagious, and authenticity is the standard. You ready? Then take that deep breath, and dare to lead. Feeling fired up? Inspired? Ready to lead with courage and heart? Then don't let this be just another thing you listen to. Let this be your turning point. If this summary sparked something in you, if you felt seen, challenged, or uplifted by Brené Brown's words, if you're ready to lead braver, bolder, and more authentically, then do 3 things right now. Like this audio to tell the algorithm you're here for growth, not just noise. Share this with someone you know who's ready to lead with their whole heart. Subscribe or follow for more powerful book breakdowns and soul-shifting insights that fuel your personal development journey. You never know who needs to hear this today, but by sharing, you might just be the reason someone else dares to lead. So hit that like, tap that share, and follow for more. And remember, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep leading with your whole heart.